Yo, bro, so one more time. What is it that you want?
Man, I want a burst Edgar, fool.
What the hell is that?
Exotic haircut.
Bro, he's gonna be excited for sure. So essentially what he wants is like an Edgar cut, because he really wants to keep the fullness and fluffiness on top, but he still wants a burst fade on the side. Yeah, so this is definitely gonna be a challenge, because I already messed him up before. If you didn't watch my TikTok video, you would see the last time he came in and asked for that, I completely got rid of the fluffiness and I gave him a straight up burst fade without any Edgar. In my opinion, I thought it looked good, but you know, like I said, these kids got their own thing going on, so I mean, I respect it. So let's go ahead and see what we can do today. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is making sure that I keep all the hair right along the parotid ridge. I don't want to cut all that length off, but I also do know that we are going to go with the burst fade at the very bottom. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is starting off with my trimmer, and I'm going to create my first initial guideline right by the sideburn area. And anytime that I set my guidelines, in order for me to know that I made it symmetrical on both sides, I have a reference point. On him, I'm beginning my guideline right by the corner of the eye. And of course, using my pinky, I'm going to lower the ear down. That way I can cut and create my guideline right behind it. And as you can see, he's already got a natural high arch right by the ear. So I'm actually going to be using that to my advantage. And I'm going to create my guideline right in that area, making sure that I stop right in the middle of the ear. But now, like I said, the problem we ran into last time was that I took too much bulk away from the parotid ridge, which essentially made his head shape look super flat on the side. So today, instead of me beginning with my clipper to debulk into the top, I'm actually going to start off with my shears, and I'm going to begin at the very bottom, digging in with my comb, and then tilting it out. That way I can control and elevate the hair outwards, and I'll be able to leave more hair by the parotid ridge. I'm just going to place my shears at the bottom backbone of the comb, and all I'm really doing at this point is just grazing the hair and debulking just a little bit, so that way now with this blended into the top, I don't have to worry about touching that area. So now I know that my fade is going to take place just in this section. And since I'm going to be working in such a compressed place, I'm going to begin with a higher guard such as a number 2, and I'm going to dig in at the bottom and work my way up. But again, now I'm just going to be connecting the clipper into my scissor work that I just created. So of course at the beginning I'm using a full guard like this, but as I get by the ear and have to create that curved shape around it, I'm going to be tilting my blade out like this. So essentially now by doing that, I'm only going to be using this much of the guard to really be able to create the curved shape. Because remember, this area right here is already cut and blended into the top. So of course whenever I'm digging in, I'm not only just using a different angle of my blade, but I'm also tilting out. So essentially, I'm not digging in like this anymore. I have my blade tilted out at an angle that allowed me to start blending into the top. Typically on any fade, I would begin at the bottom and work my way up. But again, we're working with such a compressed area. So instead of working from the bottom going up, I'm going to continue working my way down. Meaning, since I used the number 2, now I'm going to be using the guard right below that number, which is a 1.5 guard. And I'm going to begin at the bottom, but this time I'm not going to go all the way up as high as a number 2. I'm staying even lower, and as I stay even lower, I'm going to continue dropping the guard down. So anytime that I switch into a guard, for an example now in the number 1, I have the lever all the way open, and I stay even lower within that section. And as I work my way down within that section, I close the lever a little bit at a time. In this instance, I close it halfway, and I'm staying even lower. And then at the end, close it all the way, and again, staying even lower. So initially what that's really helping us do is it's helping us soften up that first initial guideline. And I know it's a little hard to see that, but now that we're going to be switching to a half guard, you're really going to be able to see the difference. So with the half guard, lever all the way open, staying even lower, you can see how much lighter the first line is starting to appear. So by the time you go through your lever work on the half guard, and then you're at the point where you have no guard left on there, well, now we're going to use the lever all the way open, but we're going to repeat the same steps, working our way down. And now the first initial guideline is starting to really fade out. Then go ahead and close your lever about halfway, stay even lower. And once your lever is all the way closed, now we can really see how the first initial guideline is completely faded out. Since I created the first line with my trimmer in this direction, I'm going to be using a trimmer to take out the first line again. Notice how I'm not having the blade completely flat like this. I'm really tilting out. That way I can work in one small little area and fade that line out. But something else that I really want you to notice as well, the whole time I was only working within the temple area. And the reason why I did that was because by focusing on one section, I didn't get overwhelmed looking at the whole thing all at once. I made sure to fade out the first section first, and now my next section is going to be right by the ear. Then my last section is going to be right behind the ear. So essentially, we divided it up into 3 different parts. Now, the most important part is going to be right behind the ear. On this part, it's very crucial that we do keep it compressed, because if we end up pushing this fade too far in, it's really going to end up looking like more of a mohawk versus a burst fade. And essentially, a burst fade by itself is already pretty difficult and challenging enough, because a burst fade, a lot of people often get it confused for a mullet because of all the hair in the back, or they end up getting confused for a mohawk. But the thing that keeps it from being a mullet and a mohawk is the way that it's shaped. So if this was a mullet like mine, we would have a lot more length right on top of the ear, just like how my hair is. See how much hair we have in this area versus what he has? So it's not a mullet. And again, the main reason it's not a mohawk is because of the width we have in the back. Because typically mohawks would only be in this one small section, but on him we have a lot wider. And the fade ends off right in the middle of the ear, versus a mohawk, it would go all the way down into the back. All this darkness would be completely gone. And again, that's why it's so important to just debulk and keep this as compressed as possible. So basically now we have a rough draft, right? We have the initial shape of the fade done, and the only thing we have left to do is to go back in detail. Whenever I line it up, I am creating more of a V shape, but the back of his neck is a little bit wider, so I don't want to create it too narrow, which is why it's almost like a mixture of a V shape and a U shape. And by stopping right in the middle of the ear, which is right on his occipital bone, you can see how that began the transition from the back into the side. Now with both the front and the back side etched up, now we're really able to see what areas we need to detail. In this instance, we know that we have to detail right in the temple area. The part right by the ear is already essentially faded out pretty well. I'm liking that. And so is the part in the back, which this area does need a little bit more detailing. But again, my main focus is going to be right here. And the way we're going to be detailing this is that we're just going to begin at the bottom this time, and this time we are going to fade our way up. But the reason we're able to fade our way up now is because we know exactly where we're going to be stopping at. We're not even doing the fade again. We're just going in between each individual hair to create that gradiency within the fade. The most important thing is to always keep your comb in hand and comb out the hair. That way you can reposition the hair back in place. And also, whenever you're detailing, I always like to use a fine side tooth of the comb to really be able to go in. That way the fine teeth on the comb can help me create that separation between each individual hair, and I'm able to use a corner of the clipper to go in between those hairs. And I'm just going to continue working my way up. Again, working one section, the next, and then the back section. And that way, by the time we hit it with the Sana Colita Rana, we came out with that burst Edgar, Hector, George, whatever kind of haircut this is, bro. So the main reason why this was so difficult, because we kept all this bulk on the top, right? But since we were able to go in with our shears at the beginning, we were able to blend into the top, creating our foundation. So by having our foundation at the bottom and our foundation at the top, we were able to keep the fade right in the middle. And not to mention, we were really able to fade right behind the ear, which is essentially, again, a burst fade is anything that goes in an arch shape, starting in the sideburn area and ends right in the middle of the ear. Otherwise, it would be considered a mohawk, or it would end up being a mullet. But overall, we were able to keep the length everywhere, and honestly, I'm really liking this. And like I said, he wanted an Edgar cut, but it's still not really an Edgar cut because we kept the bangs natural. So he didn't want to go full out Edgar yet. Maybe one of these days he will. But anyways, bro, now with your fluffy Edgar burst, what do you think about it?
It's about time you got it right.
Man, you get out there.